You listened to them. Now you're hanging out with us. This is After 83 Weeks with Christy Olson. That's me.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
There it is. Hello, and welcome to After 83 Weeks. All you fans of 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff out there, we are giving you a platform to talk about the show. We're going to be breaking down all the revelations made, fan reactions. We're going to bring you some exclusive dish, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us today. We are now on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah! We did it!
Yay! I know it took a little longer than we usually like, but we are there now. Please like, rate, comment. We want to know what you guys think about the show. If there's anything we're not giving you that you want, what you like about what we're giving to you, let us know all of that. And of course, this wouldn't be any fun if we weren't live on YouTube, because a ton of you are already hanging out with us. This chat rolls, I have to scroll already. Demo, hey, how you doing? Joseph Boza, good to see you again. We love hanging out with you guys. And we have a special new segment at the end of the show, a fun little game that we want to play with you guys. So thank you for joining us live. My name is Christy Olson, as you may have guessed. And joining me today, a woman who started not long ago as an AfterBuzz TV intern. She is now one of the most trusted voices at AfterBuzz TV wrestling and sports. Please welcome Anissa Barr.
Hi, and it's because of all of you, because you actually are and still my mentor.
Aww.
So, yeah.
I did not bring her on here just to say that, I swear.
I remember our first phone call when you called me. It was just, it was great.
I love that. We have good energy around here, and adding to that is a man who has been a pro wrestling personality for over 13 years. He's also the host of AfterBuzz TV's SmackDown After Show. Say hello to Christian Rosenberg.
Well, hello there.
Hello.
I almost feel jealous because I wanted to be Anissa's mentor, but apparently one day.
One day.
Okay.
Achieve a little more.
Got it.
Almost there.
Working on it.
Well, I'm very happy to have you guys hanging out with us today. You know, we are bringing you this good commercial-free content. You're not going to have to hit that, what is that little round arrow button that I'm always going through, the Blue Chew ads and all that other mortgage stuff that they're giving us.
You don't want to hear about Blue Chew? We all love talking about Blue Chew.
We are going to do that experiment that we talked about last week. So make sure that you are subscribed to us and go back and listen to last week's episode if you haven't checked it out yet. They were talking about Rowdy Roddy Piper. And this week on After 83, this week, I knew this was going to happen at some point. This week on 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, they broke down the infamous Halloween Havoc 1998. This includes, of course, the Hulk Hogan Warrior rematch, I guess we'll call it.
That's a strong word, but sure.
Okay. Opened up good, but there were some snafus along the way on this one, and a big, huge snafu at the end of this. And we got some really good, juicy behind-the-scenes dish from Eric on why all that went down. Let's jump right into it. Is this something that you guys were curious about? Like when you hear they're covering Halloween Havoc 98, do you go, oh yeah, we're tuning into this one?
I was about 5-6 years old when Halloween Havoc was around, but I did watch the pay-per-view today.
Oh, girl,
and you know, I felt this episode was more of an interview with Eric Bischoff about 98 Havoc.
Right.
And I really enjoyed Eric being honest about everything, and you can just now get more into it in depth. And I hope they do more. I hope he brings out more juicy gossip and what really happened, because you know you can't sue anybody anymore these days with WCW. He's not around,
and that is what some of us are here for. What were you here for on this one, Rosenberg?
Well, this was definitely one of the pay-per-views that I want to hear him talk about, because this was, a lot of people consider this one the beginning of the downfall for WCW, mainly because obviously we're going to get into how it got cut off before the show was over. So I remember hearing about it, and actually I remember I wasn't 5 or 6 when it first happened. I was a mild-mannered 15 when this when this took place. Makes me feel old sitting next to Anissa now. But I remember the next night watching Nitro and Raw, like going back and forth how I always would, and wondering, wait, why are we watching Diamond Dallas Page and Goldberg now? Wasn't that on the pay-per-view last night? I didn't see the pay-per-view live, so I didn't really understand back then. Why are we okay? I'll watch it. And I was kind of confused but excited.
Yeah.
Not knowing the details. And then it wasn't until I got older and really started actually getting into the wrestling business itself where I found out this whole story, and then eventually went back and really I'm like, oh wow. This was terrible.
Well, I guess we can't say that it was, because Eric Bischoff himself, the mastermind behind the show, agreed. He's always honest. He always lets us know the mistakes that he's made, and he's okay with that. And actually, at one point in this episode, he revealed his one and only ever regret. But let's start with the MGM Grand opening up on Halloween Havoc in 1998 with Chris Jericho and Raven. The consensus between Eric and Conrad now was that this maybe didn't work great for a lot of reasons. This was the one where they said it's kind of like face versus face, people don't know who to cheer for. Did you see that in this match, Anissa? You just watched it today?
Yeah, I didn't really see it. I saw the match, but I didn't really see them face to face. I just saw just two guys wrestling, and
some. Do you think sometimes that's just okay?
And it is, and I think that is fine. I mean, we don't often get to see heel versus heel, but more face and face. But then you never know, in that match that person can turn a heel.
That's right. Well, and did Bischoff really answer Rosenberg as to why he clearly thought this was not a great idea, but they went forward with it anyway?
Well, again, there wasn't really much of a storyline with it, and it was a title that at that time was definitely more of the throwaway title, the TV title, which I loved the television title when Regal had it, when Arn Anderson had it, when Johnny B. Bad had it. But then it definitely took a major nosedive when they were just having random matches with no real build.
Right.
And remind me, because since you just watched it today, it's been a while since I've watched it, but on the WWE Network, did they play Jericho's WCW music with it, or did they play his Break the Walls? Because eventually there's a point where Jericho comes out where they're playing his WCW music, and at some pay-per-view, they just change it. And now you have WWE's Jericho's music when he's coming out. It's very odd.
I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest. I didn't really watch the entrances. I just went straight to the
Got
match.
it.
Because I just was like, I want to see the
fine.
match. The entrances
Honesty.
are a little...
But it's two guys who obviously were great wrestlers. Especially, like, I think the Flock was one of the most underrated stables of the last 25 years. But this was at really the end of it where it really fell apart, where how they were describing on it, how, okay, now we're going to go to the story where Raven was actually a spoiled brat and had all this money. It was just like, no, don't do that. That's not a good idea.
Well, Demo in the chat, he says he feels like Raven and Jericho lacked chemistry. But maybe it was just simply the heel-heel dynamic that wasn't working.
And you have to remember, this was 98, where not every single wrestler was that amazing that we see today.
That's true.
I mean, I was watching a little bit of 97 Halloween Havoc, and the referee wasn't there on one of the matches.
He wasn't even there?
I mean, he was there, but I mean...
We'll have to see if they're going
Yeah.
to break that one down. Okay, so we got his thoughts on Jericho versus Raven, and actually it was really interesting to hear how those Raven vignettes kind of came about and why, and that it was part of adding more layers to his character. Did that make anything kind of make more sense to you guys about Raven, or the way he was booked in the company, or where he went after this?
At that point, yes, as far as where he went in the company, because he didn't really go much of anywhere. No, it's true. It's not an insult towards him, because again, I liked Raven. I loved the character. The Flock made Saturn and Kidman household names.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you turn him into the wealthy guy, and no one wants to even then react to his entrances because he's still doing the "what about me" stuff. It's like, well, we don't care anymore. And he just kind of faded to his obscurity from there in WCW, where then he eventually made his return per se into WWE, where then he just hung around the hardcore division, where he did well there, but he was never pushed as a main eventer anymore because people still remembered the character in WCW.
Right. He had a hard time getting past that. And something that I couldn't quite get past on this was this Ernest Miller versus Jackie Chan thing. So you were 15 then, you were probably soaking up all the dirt sheets. Do you remember hearing those rumors?
I actually never heard of a dirt sheet until I was like 21. So I was
They
totally in the
had
dark until
blog
then.
posts back in the day.
Well, Meltzer was doing something.
Yeah.
Conrad's getting all this from somewhere.
Newspapers or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are anymore. But I mean, they had those type of ideas. I mean, WCW at one point, I don't know offhand if Bischoff has already talked about this specific pay-per-view, but they had James Brown at one pay-per-view dancing with Ernest Miller. That's true. So the fact that they were trying to book a match with him and Jackie Chan does not surprise me in the least. It was getting close to when Rush Hour was coming out, so it makes sense. So I would have totally been on board for that if that happened. I'm not surprised that it didn't.
Well, yeah, and apparently it wasn't ever even that close to happening. But a guy that you brought up not too long ago was Perry Saturn. So he got a new opponent when Eddie Guerrero missed his flight on this show. And Conrad kind of prodded Bischoff a little bit. And he wanted to know if Bischoff remembered anything additional about Eddie missing his flight. Is this when Eddie maybe started to the wheels were coming off? And Bischoff wouldn't budge.
It's so crazy that they're bringing up Eddie Guerrero, especially because this is his birthday this week.
Oh,
Today's actually his birthday.
Today's his birthday. Okay, so it's so crazy how they're talking about this particular pay-per-view during his birthday week, and of course it is today. I'm really glad that he did not want to talk about it, because out of respect for the family and everything. But I believe if Eddie was alive today, he would definitely talk about it. But I think the reason why he's no longer here, just out of the respect. But when he mentioned do you think this is probably how the pills started and all, and then the car crash, now in my head, in my opinion, I think it now makes sense. Because if you are in a car crash or any accident, you are going to take pain medication.
Right.
And everyone is different with pain medication. Some people are addicted to it, some people are not. And maybe that did start the whole pain medication. But we don't know how badly Eddie was really feeling inside.
Right.
And it is true and the fact that Bischoff definitely did the right thing on this podcast because he wouldn't know for sure if that's what it was. So why to be like, well, it actually makes sense. So it could have been that. No, that'd be a terrible idea to say. So he did the right thing. It's just like, I'm not going to comment at all on that because I have no recollection. I have no idea officially if that caused it. So there's be no point in speculating for that. I think the only thing we need to speculate is why did they choose Lodi?
Did you get a satisfying answer to that on this show? No, I didn't really think so either.
Because Lodi? You had other guys on the roster. If you needed to, there was no need for that match, but if you needed to do it, there are other guys besides Lodi.
Well, he got his big. What do they say? You always show up with all your stuff and you cross your fingers and you wear your boots. It worked for Eva Marie.
It's not an insult as far as Lodi, right place, right time, did what he's supposed to do, but it's just like no one else was available.
I mean, Chris Jericho could have gone out and done it again.
That's right. All right, Bischoff, we're going to need a little more clarification as to why Lodi was the choice there. In the meantime, why don't you tell the people a little something fun there?
You know what, Christy? I think I will. Hey, AfterBuzzers. By the way, just like on the 83 Weeks podcast, we've got to go about 10 minutes before we do a commercial. So that's what we're doing right now. Hey, AfterBuzzers, our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there is no network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about pesky notifications, don't be. They're optional.
That's right. You can pick.
That's right. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. let us know you did in the comments, and we're going to thank you live on the air. Like Christy's given some shout-outs before. She'll keep doing them. That's what we do here.
That is what we do.
But for now, thank you for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV Talk.
I love that. That's come around since I was gone. I like that. The ESPN of TV Talk. So subscribe and also hit that thumbs up button because that's what I like.
Yes.
I like thumbs up and I can't deny. All right, that is the only sitting.
What?
I won't be I won't be whipping out the Macarena either later.
Are you sure?
Maybe.
We can have that arranged.
Maybe we'll get there. Let's talk about Alex Wright and Fit Finlay first. Bischoff gave Fit Finlay a lot of props here.
Yeah.
Did you agree with what he was saying?
I do, because now, to be honest, I didn't know Fit Finlay was in WCW until I saw.
Oh,
that.
really?
I'm
That magical mullet.
I'm young. Come on, guys. So, but now I understand why Fit Finlay is who he is and how he is, because he is amazing at what he's doing, and in his prime, he was so at the top of his game. Of course, you're at your prime, you're at the top of your game, but I still believe till this day Fit Finlay can go.
Well, he can certainly run a Raw live event, which was my experience with him at WWE. And we touched a little bit on the Eddie Guerrero stuff. Very interesting, kind of the other side of the coin there was that they were being so brazen about Scott Hall's issues that he was having that they were using it as a storyline. And I thought this was fascinating when Eric said, he's always no regrets, no regrets. That is one of the few regrets that he has, was using Scott Hall's issues as a storyline. What did you guys think about that?
I'm glad he admitted that he regretted it, because as everyone here at the table and a lot of people in the chat know Scott Hall's situation, and some of us have seen him through the TV, or as some people know him personally, have seen him through personal life.
Right.
So to know that he regrets that shows that Eric Bischoff has feelings, and
He's human.
and the thing with that is, with Scott Hall, it makes you, I don't know, I felt so more bad for Scott Hall.
Right.
I felt horrible. But
And the match that they had at Halloween Havoc was a little anticlimactic as well.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where, again, at the time it was coming out, there wasn't many dirt sheets per se, because obviously internet was still fairly in its like infant toddler stages at that point. So there wasn't much to look at. So really, when I'm first watching this, I don't know that Scott Hall actually has a legit drinking problem outside of the show. I can see the story, they're making him out like he has a drinking problem, which to me is just like, why would you be making him look so weak? And I don't want to use like, if you have a drinking problem, you're a weak person. But in terms of wrestling, you're far more vulnerable and you're not going to be able to win matches in those situations. So then he has the match with Nash. And I remember watching this and wondering like, this is going to be like a big emotional buildup because the best friends, they came in together, outsiders clashing. And I remember watching this match and watching Nash walk out and just get counted out after Hall is laying. And I'm asking myself, why? Like, what? Like, it didn't make sense for there, because it would if then Scott Hall started bragging, yeah, I beat him, I crushed him, and Nash. But there really wasn't much of that. Because eventually, and this was at the point where the NWO was really starting to juggle between the Wolfpack, the LWO, Black and White. Stevie Ray was trying to be the leader at one point. It made no sense. And so with this, it was one of those things where, like, I almost would have rather Nash jackknife him. Scott Hall is out, but if Nash still feels so bad for him, Nash then literally lies down on the mat and drags Scott Hall on top of him for Hall to pin him that way and be like, no, see what I've done for you. But they decided, no, we're just going to walk out.
It's sad. It's sad. Everybody's doing good now.
I like
Yes.
I like that he mentioned how he wished he could have helped him more. Like he should have helped him during that time instead of just what he had done.
That's a great point that you make, because someone should help another WWE Hall of Famer, and we will be getting to that in our news very shortly. But you talked about the build up to this match,
Right.
Rosenberg, but I don't know that anything really compares to the talk about the build up of Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. So this was to be I think we mentioned that a little earlier, a rematch from WrestleMania many years before.
WrestleMania 6.
Yeah.
How old are you then?
I was 5.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
Because well, wait, WrestleMania 6. Now I'm drawing a blank. Actually, I don't remember what year. I might have been a little older than that.
All right. Well, either way, I'm guessing
5 or 6, something like that.
you were amped up for this rematch. Do you remember watching the build-up? What like as a fan?
I remember watching this live.
What were your thoughts about this?
I remember watching the Nitros live. I remember there was a build-up where I think it was Piper. I mean, we kind of at the time I think he was being commissioner, like how we talked about last week, and I think he was saying it was either him or JJ Dillon, but he's like, Hogan, your opponent at Halloween Havoc is someone that you have a record of 0-1, and it was just this massive uproar because people were just like, wait, who has Hogan never beaten? And I was, as a kid trying to think of like, wait, who's he not thinking someone from the past was going to come in.
WWF.
And then Warrior shows up, and I'm just like, oh my God, he was just fired from WWE because he couldn't wrestle anymore. And now they're bringing him here. And I was just like, okay, I get the story there. They have the past. And I remember that mirror segment that they talk about on the podcast. I remember watching that and just being like, interesting that now the Warrior apparently has these like dark Papa Shango like powers.
Yeah.
But again, I completely agree with how they were phrasing it. There's just like, we knew that they were going to put on a 5-star classic, and thankfully it sounds like they also knew that
they weren't going to.
That they weren't going
right.
to. But going back and having to build up, along with Horace. Joining in with that, that's a random trivial question for super wrestling fans. Like, what was the name of Hogan's nephew that kind of wrestled in WCW?
Right.
The answer is Horace, and I'm glad actually. I didn't know that it was 100% true that he was legit nephew, but Bischoff clarified that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was legit nephew, and Hogan really brought him on as a favor, and it was very interesting what Bischoff said about. Maybe that's cool, like be loyal, and yeah, sure, maybe we should give Hulk Hogan, maybe we should give your nephew a chance. Probably not in a huge match at a huge pay-per-view.
And he's 100% right.
Right.
The big thing is because we get, Charlotte Flair. Let's use her for example.
David Flair.
Well, David Flair is another example of how you shouldn't do it.
Right.
Right. Like Charlotte, when she first came on, she was just hanging out. She was behind Summer Rae in NXT and just slowly built. Eventually, she built to NXT champ, but they didn't like, Flair's daughter, put her on the main roster right away. They didn't do that because, okay, there's going to be a lot of pressure on her, just like there's a lot of pressure on Dustin Rhodes and Cody Rhodes and The Rock. They actually screwed up with The Rock when he debuted because they tried to push him to the moon with the heavy promos because he was the third generation. And it backfired. Thankfully, Rock was so talented enough to get it to work. Horace Hogan, not so much.
Not so much.
Right.
But I did enjoy hearing sort of the juicy behind-the-scenes story. Eric Bischoff did try to kind of pass a little blame for some of this, like the mirror segment, some stuff off. He was like, I don't know, maybe that was Kevin Sullivan. That sort of seems to be his go-to a little bit on the show. It's like, that was probably Kevin Sullivan.
It was Sullivan. We'll just blame Sullivan.
We will. I should have had him call in. Sorry, next time. Anyway, so what did you guys hear on 83 Weeks about the Hogan Warrior, the builds up, the feud about Warrior going to Hogan's house? What stood out to you? What revelations had you and Nisa going, that was juicy?
I
hope you didn't do it like that.
No, but one thing that was like, oh wow, really? That when Ultimate Warrior went to Hogan's house, and the way he described how Hogan was in his house kind of not the Hulk Hogan that you see all the time. And we have to remember every single wrestler that we meet and come across are not who they are in real life. This is a character, and they're different. So I believe that Warrior was so into his gimmick and his character. I mean, he did change his name to Warrior.
Right. When you legally change your name to your character.
So for that shocked me a little bit on how Hogan was a different person.
Yeah.
And
that he was so insecure.
Exactly. Which you shouldn't. I mean, you have a beautiful family. You live in Florida. But then again,
well, I don't know that we'd be too jelly of that.
I mean,
there's plenty else
money can't
for him
buy
to be
you
proud
happiness.
of.
I mean, everyone, whether people think they're the biggest name in wrestling, the biggest celebrity, everyone has insecurities. They just go about them differently. So it is interesting to hear that. And I mean, kind of gathered as the years went on that Hogan did have some insecurities, but it was interesting as far as with this for this match, and then the match itself. I mean, I think Bischoff said that was the worst match under his era. I think is what he said.
He did.
And I'm trying to go back and think as far as a WCW pay-per-view match that was worse than that, and I cannot think of one.
I think he even said it's not even a part of like a classic match, and he even mentioned like he also mentioned Eddie and Benoit.
Yeah.
At one point, and I was like, oh wow, Benoit's name it's being talked about.
He's not under the umbrella. He's allowed to say it.
Every time someone, I'm kind of like, oh, did everyone hear that? Did they really say it?
Was that just me?
Right? Did they? That's who we're talking about, right?
Yeah. So I was like, oh wow, okay.
She's looking around and I'm like, where did it come from?
Is it okay to say that name right now? What? Am I going to be in trouble?
That's part of the fun of breaking down
Yeah.
WCW, baby.
Yes.
Is it the worst match of all time?
I mean,
Can't be.
In WCW history.
as far as WCW pay-per-views, it could very well be. I mean, the worst match that I personally ever saw live was Goldberg Lesnar WrestleMania 20, but that's a different story.
It is. It's something that we could talk about some other time.
But as far as what I remember on WCW pay-per-views, as far as marquee matches, I cannot think of anything that was worse than this.
They were really trying to recapture the magic of before, but they didn't do anything. I mean, they didn't do anything to.
It seems like they're trying to.
It would have been okay to go and do the exact same thing. We see a lot of that now.
It seems like they're trying to repeat history, but make it more better. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does.
Well, that's what WCW did for so many things.
Right, and look where they are now.
What about? Would you guys have guessed that maybe giving Warrior a live microphone was not something that anyone at WCW was like really excited to do?
No one should have ever done that. And look at his promos back when he was good. Well, quote unquote good. But as far as when he was a huge fan favorite and every crowd loved him for his energy, his promos made no sense and he went on and on and on. Let alone when he's old and can't move around and you're giving him on live Nitro.
Right.
Yeah, that's not going to work well.
So the decision, as Eric Bischoff revealed, the decision for Warrior to do more taped vignettes was definitely understood by all, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yes.
I would hope.
Well, this one not only started with a bang and had an infamous middle, it ended questionably. There were a lot of questions at the end of this. As we know, the pay-per-view went off the air for a lot of people watching it before we got to see the big finish between DDP and Goldberg. Because we now know, as Eric Bischoff said, a lack of communication, which is a huge surprise. You'd think when you're putting so much money and time into a live production like this, that you'd make sure that, hey, you made that phone call, right? You let them know we're going over a little bit? Yeah, I took care of it. You'd think. But not only that, but also the guys going overtime during their matches. This is something, obviously, that is a running issue for
everywhere.
companies.
From all
is.
From the smallest independent company to WWE. I mean, it happens all the time.
He revealed that it was one of his, like, the biggest thorns in his side during his time there. And it didn't sound like he really had any kind of a remedy for it. You know, Bischoff talks about kind of being tough and not letting people get away with stuff and like setting an example of people. I was sort of surprised not to hear him say like, and then the one time I told them they're not getting another pay-per-view match for a year and they never did it again. Or, you know, I'm sort of surprised that he just let that be an issue. And look what happened.
Well, I mean, if let's say, let me just use a random example of like WWE today. Let's say you had AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. They were supposed to go 15 minutes, and they went 23 minutes. Mm-hmm. Do you think they're going to tell those two guys who are at the top of the WWE, you're going to be off pay-per-views for a year?
That is a really fantastic point. Mm-hmm. You, yes, completely blew mine out of the water, and you are correct.
Now that said, now if it was...
Good example.
Now, if it was Wrath and who I don't... Lodi.
Lodi, sorry.
Horse.
Lodi might have been better. But yeah, but if it was Lodi cutting a promo and he was supposed to give like 4-minute promo and he went 10, he ain't on TV for a while.
Right.
It all depends on who it was and where they are on the card. So, and now that's politics, yeah, it's favoritism, that's life, especially in pro wrestling.
Do you think it was Disco going overtime on his Macarena dance?
I'm still waiting for you to do the Macarena.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Everybody in the chat, I know you can hear this.
Yes.
Do you guys know it?
Of course.
All right, we are going to take a quick moment right now. iTunes listeners, just hold out and enjoy Macarena because we're about to do this. Ready? And 3, 2, 1, go. We're doing it. We are doing it. Hey, we all know it. We're so good. And shake. We're shaking it. Yes.
All right.
Big clap at the end. All right.
Everyone who was listening, you're welcome.
I haven't done that in years.
They
missed a few steps.
The people listening may not tune into the video for that part. Or maybe you will. Maybe you want to see us do the Macarena sitting down.
Maybe they're dying for it. Maybe our show will go over and get cut off at the end. No one will know where to follow you.
Follow me on. And we're cut off.
And we're done. We do have a ton of stuff to get to, but were there any other revelations about the time being cut off and the pay-per-view? I mean, I guess it was kind of cool to hear the whole story about the fallout afterward, how angry people were, how the networks were receiving tons of calls.
As they should. But it was so interesting. One part that really blew my mind was how all the different cable companies, they gave different amounts of refunds and rebates. Mm-hmm. So it varied depending on what market you were in and things like that. I found that really interesting. But yeah, the amount of money that they lost from this and then not being able to close it out, not having the crowd or the people who paid that money to see live Goldberg and DDP, where I know I mentioned the worst match I've ever seen live was Goldberg-Lesnar at WrestleMania 20. This match, I honestly feel, was Goldberg's best match that he ever had, was this match with DDP.
Really? They didn't talk it up that much.
No. Because any match that was over 3 minutes, Goldberg had a lot of trouble with. But I felt his match with DDP, I really thought this one told the best story. Crowd was so behind it. It was one of those rare face-to-face matches that people were on board with, because I felt DDP really earned this title shot, but Goldberg's just such a monster and unbeatable. So I was really curious to see which way they would go. And I really enjoyed the match. I just feel, honestly, I feel bad because it would have helped Goldberg and DDP more. I mean, they both did just fine, but it would have helped both of them more if this snafu didn't happen. Mm-hmm. If we just cut the Lodi match, then this wouldn't have happened.
And I think just Eric Bischoff was just being Eric Bischoff and was like, yeah, I'm just going to do it.
Just like let it happen.
Just let it happen. But at the same time, it's like now I'm glad that he was able to do that, because now we're here talking about it.
Right.
And now he's speaking about it. And I feel that a lot of people don't give Eric Bischoff a lot of credit on what kind of amazing things he did in WCW, and there's certain reasons why he did that. And with that, maybe it was budget cuts, maybe it was a certain time limit. I mean, remember back in the early 2000s when the XFL was going on a little too longer because SNL was like, hey, we're about to go on and you're taking too much time.
Wait, they didn't hold off Saturday Night Live for the XFL?
I mean,
shocking.
And it was J-Lo was performing.
But I mean, this just happened a couple months ago with All In.
Right,
All
that's
In.
right.
They literally
Right.
the Young Bucks match. They cut. They've said in the interview they cut 60% of their match out because they had to rush it, and they signed off with I think 7 seconds to spare.
Oh my gosh.
So it was, it still happens today. These are set contracts. Anyone who watches the NFL on Sunday, there's a close game. I think it was like a week or so ago. I'm watching on Fox. Like there's a game that's in overtime. I'm really into it, and then all of a sudden, they pop on and it's like, sorry, due to contract obligations, not our fault. It's the NFL's fault. We have to go to this other game. And with 2 minutes left in an overtime game, that game is off, and we're watching the start of another game.
And is your immediate reaction, this is a ratings ploy? Blame Bischoff.
Yeah, I blame. Yeah,
Because
I said
apparently that's what everybody
I said,
thought in 1998.
Bischoff! This is all your fault.
And he was probably busy crying over his Vikings.
Yes.
Who I don't even know.
So
who
I
he is.
have this.
They won this
I have
one.
this question. Maybe you can answer it. Maybe you can answer it. But when that does happen, especially with WWE being on the USA Network, and then now they're going to go to Fox News, and they are going to be
Not Fox News.
Fox Sports.
They're
Sorry,
they're not going to be on Fox News.
That's only for
That will not
Ziggler.
gel well.
sorry. And they do go overtime. Does somebody have to call the network and say, "Hey, we need about maybe 10 more minutes"?
My assumption would be that they just have free reign with that it's already kind of been agreed that they're just going to go over. The networks always have it sort of set up where they're going into a show that they want people to just stay tuned in for. So I think they're usually fine with it. And I mean, Raw is still, I believe it's at least close to it, the number one cable show on TV every week.
Yeah.
So they're not too concerned, I
SmackDown?
don't think, with cutting it short.
No, Raw's still above. But when SmackDown switches to Fox, watch out.
Yeah, Raw's got some competition.
But yeah, and along with what you're saying, though, I think it also goes well into the fact that, WWE's only going to put their pay-per-views on the WWE Network now. Why? Because there's no time restriction for them on the network.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why they have shows that go 3, 3.5, 4, 5, 18 hours.
Right.
Plus a 7-hour pre-show.
Yep.
We love it. Is there anything that you guys would like to add about this episode of 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff?
I'm gonna start listening more because this is the first time I actually listened.
Yeah.
And again, it's just so interesting to know what really happened in WCW, especially someone my age who didn't really watch WCW but kind of did because everyone was talking about it at the time. It was a hot topic. But to be able to go back and look at those and be like, oh wow, like he talked about this moment and I'm watching it right now, thinking what are they thinking behind in the production room or
It's getting me so into it. Yeah. So into it, and it was just so good.
And these two just are so good at communicating well,
Breaking it down. Conrad is amazing.
Conrad's great.
Yeah.
I really like, because I don't remember the last time I ever heard anyone praise Disco.
Yeah.
And Eric did. Because Disco Inferno was one of those guys, definitely a lower to mid-card character. People got into it. People would dance along when he entered, but he had a good look, and he was a solid wrestler. But everyone forgets that he was a solid wrestler because, here's the joke guy that is a disco character in the late 90s. But he lasted a long time in WCW, and he held a few titles. He had a few reigns, and he was better than what people remember. And I'm glad that Bischoff reminded the fans of maybe we shouldn't have given him 2 matches on the same pay-per-view because totaling over 20-something minutes, but he deserves to be there, and he earned his spot. And I'm glad that he did that. I mean, he's an interesting person from what I've heard from people who've met. I've never personally met Disco, but I enjoyed his work when I would go back and watch it, and I'm glad Bischoff acknowledged it.
Yes.
I do want to add, though, that I'm glad that he mentioned about why he has Nitro Girls. Because the commercials, and people would get bored, and, some of the Nitro Girls really were very entertaining. I mean, one of them...
Yes, they were.
A beautiful way of, that is such a 2018 way of putting it, Anissa. I love that.
15-year-old me agrees.
And lucky for one, she's now married to Shawn Michaels.
That's right.
One's married to Booker T.
Yep, that is true.
There was a couple others that were.
I should have broke out my Nitro Girls t-shirt for this.
next week.
Next week.
Time. All right. Well, that has been fun, but it's now time for my favorite part of the show. Let's break down some news and hot topics.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Need like a little sizzly noise for the hot topics.
Is this working?
Perfect.
All right.
Love it. We're going to kick this off with one that I feel pretty strongly about. WWE Hall of Famer Sunny has been released from jail. This is from Pro Wrestling Sheet. They've confirmed that she has been released from police custody. She was behind bars for 8 months. Okay, at the Carbon County, and the sheriff did confirm she was released today on parole. Remember, she was locked up back in March because of a 4th and 5th DUI, as well as fleeing the scene of the car accident. She's currently in the process of leaving when this was posted this morning, so I'm sure she's out now, and we will keep you posted on what's going on with her. But I want to go back man, it's been a couple years since I started reporting on this. I've always followed Sunny's story. And at one point, she was in the hospital. She admittedly has had an alcohol problem for a very long time, and she has a lot of health problems because of that. And at one point, the reason why she was in jail was because she was on probation and had to report or something, but was in the hospital due to the liver issues and whatnot that she has from her alcoholism. So this is a woman who, in and out of jail, still battling her demons. No one is helping her. DDP's not reaching out to her. Not that necessarily has to be him, but no one's reaching out to her. No one's giving her a hand up. Are they paying for her rehab? I think there have been reports that they have in the past. But why is no one reaching out a hand and pulling Sunny up? If this was Scott Hall, if this was any one of the boys, and they've done it a million times, fix the boys, get them back on their feet. Why is no one doing that for Sunny?
Well, we don't know. She could be refusing it. We don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
That's true.
They could be reaching. They could be ignoring her. I don't know. I would not be surprised if at some point for WWE to do it. I mean, hell, they did it for Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
Who was trying to compete and put him out of business.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they only do it so many times as well. He's like, all right.
But would there ever be a last time for a Scott Hall?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I think WWE
Jake
cut
Roberts?
him. I think WWE cut them off, and then DDP came in himself because he was so close with them. But I mean, do we know DDP's reached out to Sunny? Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. We don't know. Maybe he did and she refused it. Maybe he's just like, no, I don't like what she's about, and he's refusing it. We don't know.
There does seem to be a lot of bringing up of past behavior and, Sunny is this and she's that, examples that are being used from way back in the day. People say a lot of really terrible, gross things about her. And
I mean, you have to
a lot of people did a lot of terrible things during the Attitude Era.
Right. And speaking of Attitude Era, they didn't do anything for China. They didn't reach out and help China. And I've been listening to a lot of interviews of China lately because I've been going in the rabbit hole of YouTube. And she's admitted, like, she didn't get any help. I mean, she was a little screwed over. And I do feel for Sunny in a way because she was in her prime in the 90s. And all of a sudden, she's gone. And the first time I ever see Sunny was when they had the 15th anniversary of Raw. And she comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. And then now she's in the Hall of Fame and all that. And then so on and so forth. So I feel that they need to help her because look what happened with China. Rest in peace.
Exactly.
What's going to happen with Sunny?
And Rosenberg, you work in this field extensively.
Sure.
Would you say there is less tolerance for a female character having something like an alcohol abuse issue versus if a guy shows up and he's drunk, are they pouring water down his throat and making sure he gets out there? If the girl shows up and she's told she's replaced, I mean, what is the climate out there?
I mean, as far as the independent scene from my experience, I think it's somewhat equal as far as how they're reprimanded at the physical show.
Okay.
One thing, as far as in Southern California goes, now it's definitely gotten better over the last year or two. There's very little female talent out here. Now, I mean, with the whole women's evolution and exploded, and there's become a lot more people traveling out here. So that's drastically changed in these last few years. But I mean, I've worked on tons of shows where they literally provide beer in the dressing room.
That's a good point.
For the workers to just enjoy. Whether some people do, some people don't.
I mean,
but
there's a show called bar wrestling. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they do in the backstage, so I'm not going to presume anything
They
because
don't
I don't
do
know what they have in the
anything.
dressing room.
They
There's
don't.
a bar there where people can buy drinks.
yes.
Hence, and wrestling right next door, hence the name. But as long as people are still acting somewhat professional, like, oh, if you have a beer, I mean, you don't want to get to a point where you're also worried about the safety of yourself and whoever you're in the ring with. So if there was a situation where they felt someone was too drunk or too high, I don't think it matters personally whether it's male or female. They're going to be reprimanded.
You don't think there's less tolerance for a female having that kind of behavior versus...
That said, it also depends where they are on the card.
Oh.
If it's the main event or if it's a guy with the champions, it's a guy they flew in. I mean,
It's more about that than...
it's more about, okay, please don't do this again next time.
Right, okay.
So I mean, if they were both in the same level of the card, they'll get the same punishment. It all depends on where they are on the card and how much they're paying them.
Well, we wish Sunny the absolute very
Yes.
best, and I hope that I someday get a chance to maybe sit down with her and have a chat. So if you're interested, girl, I think we follow each other. Tweet me. And another blast from the past. This is probably one that you guys did not expect. D-Generation X has challenged the Brothers of Destruction. That's right. It's not. We're not talking about 20 years ago anymore.
Are you sure?
You got. I'm pretty sure.
Are we still on 98 Nitro?
No, this happened on Raw, baby. Triple H and Shawn Michaels reacting to an attack they suffered at the hands of Undertaker and Kane after the main event that was at Super Showdown in Australia last weekend. And now Triple H defeated Undertaker before getting beat down alongside HBK.
I know, I was surprised by that too.
And now it's going down at... Wait, I put a little asterisk in here. Oh, yes. November 2nd in Saudi Arabia at what they're apparently calling Crown Jewel.
Crown Jewel.
Thoughts?
My 17-year-old self is just very upset because I wasted my tears.
Oh.
Because
I'm
cried.
applauding this.
I cried that when Shawn Michaels announced that he was going to retire.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite wrestler since '97. This is the first wrestler I ever saw on TV. And this is obviously around D-Generation X when this all happened. And to now see him, and Shawn Michaels is the greatest thing. I had the opportunity to ask him a question on Xbox podcast. And to see that now he's coming back, it's like, no. It's like,
You want to leave it where it
I
left
just
off?
yeah, and I do like the surprises when he comes back and helps out a little bit, but at the same time, it is go through my mind. Can he still go? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just give him one more chance. Maybe he can go.
Well, I'm a little concerned. Honestly, last time I was in the ring with Shawn Michaels, he said to me, and I quote, because this was very memorable, he said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." If you all can, a little trivia for you, when was the last time HBK was involved in a WWE match that made it to the WWE network? You don't know what I'm talking about. He reffed an NXT match.
With Gargano.
No, it was Adam Cole versus Drew McIntyre. And you guys can actually see it on the NXT holiday special from last year. But he was there reffing in his ref shirt. Wasn't quite sure where to go or what to do, but it was an amazing match. And I mean, they're gonna make some money off this, right? A little change.
Well, they have a new T-shirt.
It's here's the thing. Saudi Arabia is the reason they're going back there for the second time in a year is because Saudi Arabia is paying them boatloads of money.
That's right.
So they're getting Lesnar out there. They got Shawn Michaels out of retirement. I don't know how much money they're giving, but I mean, I'm on a very similar page to what Anissa said with this because I teared up with Flair.
Okay.
Because that happened before Michaels, and then all of a sudden Flair showed up in TNA, and I'm just like, what is all this? But Michaels, part of me, I was trying to reserve myself because like I don't want the same thing with Flair and Hogan be happening with him. Right. But he was just like, no, I'm really done. I'm not going to do it. And since then, he has not done it. And I've respected the hell out of him for it.
Exactly.
And now, there are reasons. Who knows what they are? I'm gonna support them, but part of me is just like really bummed because he was the one that honored retirement. And who knows? He's going to go out there and he's probably going to easily be the best of the 4. And all of a sudden we're going to be like, oh no, he still got it. He can still go. And then all of a sudden he's going to wrestle again and again and again. Or he's going to be a shell of what he used to be because it's been so many years. And also we're just like,
he'll go back to the PC and train the guys to get ready for TVs.
But then goes back and goes like, and then we're all just like, this isn't the Shawn we remembered.
Right.
And then we'll be bummed by that. So I'm not happy about it.
So what are we? I mean, we're not going to get prime Shawn Michaels 99,
of course,
but we might get maybe late 2009.
All right, let's cross our fingers for late 2009 HBK, everybody. And I did want to talk a little bit about Austin Aries, but we are running out of time. So if you would like to debate whether the political correctness rules are different in pro wrestling than in the rest of the world, let's talk about it. And speaking of things that you guys are going to get involved in, this is really fun. We are gearing up for a brand new segment. We're going to do this every week, and we want you guys to be involved. All of you are still rolling in the chat. I see you there. Get ready for this. It is called Mad Lib Fight Wars.
Mad Lib Fight War! Mad Lib Fight War!
You have to say it like Monday Night Wars, but I'll say it slower so that everyone can get it. Mad Lib Fight Wars.
Mad Lib
Fight Wars. See, that's not as fun. Mad Lib Fight Wars!
Mad Lib Fight War!
And in Mad Lib Fight Wars, we're going to ask you guys on social media over the week. Make sure you are liking our new Facebook page, facebook.com/after83weeks.
Hey!
And check out all of our social media we'll be posting. And you're going to get a little suggestion. Something maybe like, we are going to do this tonight, so get going. Something like a kitchen appliance and a huge structure. So everyone out there in the chat, start giving us some suggestions here of a kitchen appliance and a tall structure. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick the best ones. We're gonna put together a little gimmick match. And then here on the show, our panelists are going to choose a WCW era wrestler that they would want to participate in this match and kind of talk it out, debate it, how they think they would go, who would win. Okay, this is going to be really fun. This is the bane of Eric Bischoff's existence because he hates gimmick matches. So we are going to have a little fun with that.
I was going to say, we're ending these shows with the mind of Vince Russo, which is a very, very lack of a mind.
That's true. You know what? We're kind of running out of time anyway. So now that we've told everyone about it, and we played the ding, 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 and we told them how to say it, let's just gear up for next week.
Sure.
I will put it out there. I'm going to come up with something way better than kitchen appliance and tall structure. And if you have suggestions for the Mad Lib portion as well, please reach out to us all and let us know. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
I do too.
And you guys are going to participate and be a big part of it, which is so fun. So, because I'm pretty sure the girls from 90 Day Fiance after show are counting down on their watches out there, and that's a great show. They probably have a lot to talk about. So we are gonna wrap up this baby. I want to thank the two of you for joining me tonight. This was so much fun. Not just you guys, Demo, Joseph, everybody who's hanging out in the chat tonight. We love you. Thank you for being a part and contributing to the show tonight. Where can they find you two and see you on your other shows and such? What else are you up to?
Well, you could find me on social media at Anissa Bar. I do the Man Classic After Show. You can watch that on Wednesdays.
Woo-hoo.
Unfortunately, we won't have a show this week because I will be going out supporting my friend Sarah, who does the women's wrestling show. She's going to be doing WOW.
Wow,
so
yeah, we got WOW in
I'm
town.
going to go and support my friends like I always do.
Yes.
So, but I do want to thank Christy
Aw.
for letting me do
You're
this
so
panel. It was so
welcome.
fun. This is actually our official first time hosting together.
Yes. Because we always snuck you in last time.
Yes.
Rosie, where did they see you?
This is our official 8,000th time I think doing a show.
Officially.
Follow me on Twitter at Rosenberg, Instagram the Rosenberg, prosandtees.com/Christian Rosenberg. Hey, do you love this new T-shirt that I'm wearing? Because Collar and Elbow brand, they got their new fall line out. This is one of the designs. You can go there, pick them up. They got specials all the time. Plus, use the promo code Rosenberg. You save yourself 10%. And of course, you can. It's very soft. Feel it. It's soft. It's nice. Good material. And you could also check me out hosting the AfterBuzz SmackDown After Show, which will be tonight at 9 o'clock Pacific.
All right, so now we felt Rosenberg up. We did the
Yes.
Macarena.
This is a great
He
night.
said, Mad Lib Fight Wars. This has been awesome. I want to remind you all to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And please, since we're new, like and rate. Give us 5 stars. Tell us what you love about the show. I'm going to be reading all of those, and we'll read some of them on the air, too. So get to that. And also follow me at Christy Reports. Chat about that Austin Aries thing. And we will be back right here next week. They're going to be talking about the big show in WCW.
The Giant.
It's going to be fun. So we will see you right back here at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Thanks.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.